Money-saving habits are important all year long, but the fourth quarter can be make it or break it. If you haven't made the progress that you hoped to make so far this year in your financial goals, then the fourth quarter is the perfect time to catch up so that you can finish the year strong and start 2025 with a new budget that will really work for you.
If you don't know us, I'm Larry.
I'm Hope.
And we're from Under the Median, where every week we bring you videos on practical frugality.
Before we get started, we should say that this is part 2 of a 4-part video series. The series is designed to help you set up your budget for 2025, and we'll be sure to link part 1 all the way at the end of this video.
The first thing you want to do is create spending projections. And we have a form that you can use in order to get that written down.
Basically, you want to figure out how much money do you foresee coming in for the next 3 months? The reason we started doing this is because Larry always got a bonus at the end of the year. Estimate what that's going to be. Then you're going to literally estimate how much money you will spend in each of your major budget categories between now and the end of the year. The reason we found this to be so helpful is it allowed us to immediately see where there was money in our budget that was available. So in case we hadn't made progress on those goals, we could grab that extra money and we could move it over to those other budget categories and those other goals.
The other thing that it helps you do is it helps you set up your spending budget for the holiday season.
And we'll talk about the holidays in depth in just a second.
Step 2 is to create a replacement or purchase list.
And that looks like this.
Right. This gives you an idea of what you're going to replace or purchase. It's going to cost a lot of money and helps you plan for those purchases.
But if you're going to spend that money in 2025, why would you even plan for it at the end of 2024? There are some really important reasons why you want to do that now instead of waiting for the beginning of 2025. One of those reasons is that it takes a little bit of time to do that product research.
Yes, it does.
And narrow things down to make, model, your entire budget for that replacement cost. That's what you're going to figure out by doing that research. But another reason is Black Friday sales are coming up. And if you have the ability to save a little bit of cash quickly, you could very well cash flow that during the final quarter of 2024, so you don't need to even move it over to your 2025 spending plan.
Another thing that you can do is get ahead of the winter clothing rush by buying used at a thrift store.
That's right. So we're going to tell you inventory your clothing, make a note of anything that's going to need to be replaced. This was super important to us when we had 4 boys and
Yes.
they all wore different sizes. We had bins of clothes that were sitting in the garage that were labeled with specific sizes. We would go through those bins, figure out what is missing from here that this child is going to need. Because you're going to be able to find winter clearance as early as late January, early February. Certainly by March, you're going to see those rock bottom prices. And it's great to have that list available. You can even create that list on your phone so you have it available while you're shopping. You can look for brand new merchandise that is at deep discount, or as Larry mentioned, you can look at thrift stores.
It's nice to be able to understand what you might put on this list. Maybe you have a computer that's still running Windows 10, or you have a 30-year-old washer and dryer that are making some funny noises that you might want to think about replacing. These are all things you can kind of look ahead on and get that budget set up for those.
By the way, if you like our forms, you can get yourself a copy of them. They're all available in our Frugal Finance Planner Super Pack. Now, the Super Pack only opens up twice a year. It's where we take our normal Frugal Finance Planner bundle and we supersize it, and we add 4 additional high-value bonuses. Now, that sale will open up at the beginning of January, but this year we're doing a wait list, and you want to make sure that you're on the wait list, because if you're on the wait list, you're going to get a lot of information from us, you're going to get some freebies, you're going to get a lot of great tips, and you are going to get a special bonus that is available only to people who are on the wait list. So I'll make sure that there is a link for you to sign up for the wait list. It'll be in the description of this video.
Step 3 is to write fourth quarter budget goals. For us, there's kind of an inverse ratio between how items are increasing in price in the economy and how often we review what we need to purchase.
In general, we do quarterly goals, but then we also have monthly goals. Those monthly goals are based on how we're doing on those quarterly goals. What happens is it winds up driving us forward a lot more quickly and a lot more efficiently than if we were only looking at those quarterly goals once, setting them aside, and then not looking at them again until the next quarter. Our end of the year quarterly goals tend to be a little bit different, I think, than those for the first 9 months of the year. And I think one of those reasons is the fact that the holidays come on strong. The minute that you hit October, you begin thinking about all of those holidays that are coming up. And there are unexpected expenses and some of them expected expenses that come along with the holiday season.
Before we move on to the holiday spending, I think we need to look at the fact that the goals need to be very specific and you need to have several steps involved in order to get to those goals.
We call those action steps in our forms, and it helps us to think of them that way because those are the actions that we are going to consistently take in order to reach that specific goal. Let me just give you an example of how this whole quarterly goal thing works. We have had quarterly goals in specific areas for years now. We generally take about 3 different areas of our budget and we really look closely at those areas for 3 months at a time. One that consistently comes up on our radar definitely is utility cost, especially in Illinois. We do get all 4 seasons, and so we get some really cold days in the winter. We get really, really hot days in the summer.
Right.
And it seems like during those times of the year, that's when it shows up again on our quarterly goal sheet. One of the things that we do is set a specific percentage that we would like to drop those utility bills over the course of 3 months, or we may say we want to keep the utility bills below a certain amount for those 3 months. Either one of those will work, but you do want to make sure that each quarterly goal is specific. What are you aiming at? You don't want to just reduce your utility bills. You want to make sure you reduce them by a percentage or by a certain amount, or you make sure you keep those utility bills at a certain amount. Once you have that goal written, then you're going to create, we generally say 4 to 6 action steps. We call those action steps because these are the steps that we are willing to take in order to reach that specific goal. These are specific tasks or specific habits that we're going to do consistently. But it's not just enough to create the goal and then create the action steps. You have to follow through again by doing those action steps and then tracking how that is impacting that specific bill. Now, when you're able to do that, you're able to evaluate how effective those habits have been in helping you to lower that specific bill. And we have recreated this process over and over and over again over the past 25 or 30 years.
For different goals.
Right, for different goals in all kinds of different areas of our budget. And it works really, really well. I'm going to have Larry just review those 4 steps for you real quick. Make sure you got them.
So you want to write a specific goal, then you want to create the action steps or create the steps to get to it. Then you want to follow those steps, and then you want to go back over and you want to evaluate how you did. Those are the 4 steps to get from making the goal to getting there.
Hey, if that makes sense and it's resonating with you, would you do a terrific favor for us? Scroll up and hit that like button and then tell us in the comments section that makes perfect sense.
Step 4 is to create a realistic holiday budget. Now, why do we have this one in here with all the rest of them? Well, we know that your budget for October, November, and December is really heavily weighted on what you spend on your Christmas holiday.
One of the mistakes we see people make all the time is that when it comes to the holidays, they only consider like gifts they're going to buy for their immediate family. But really, your holiday budget, it's going to encompass a whole lot more than that. For instance, we have our youngest son is in madrigals this year. Well, of course, that means that the whole family wants to go support him, and we should, by going to the madrigal dinner, which means that Larry and I, mom and dad, are springing for tickets for everybody for the madrigal dinner.
Right.
That expense is going directly in our budget this year for the holidays. So as you can see, it's like any events that you do. Are you going to have to buy some new decor? Are you going to chip in on the gift for perhaps your boss or your supervisor at work? There are a lot of different traditions that families have, and we think they're super important, by the way.
Yeah.
But we do think that you need to think ahead and you need to make sure that there is money that is budgeted for that. So we don't say just create a holiday budget. We say create a realistic holiday budget and make sure you have everything included in it.
One of the reasons it's important to do this is if you don't plan for all those, I almost call them hidden expenses, the food that you might use when you have your family over for Christmas, for instance, you need to plan for all of that. If you don't plan, you might end up taking a loan out or going into debt for that amount of money. And that's something you don't want to have to do.
Actually, somewhere around, I read the statistics and it's been a while, so don't take this as absolute. But as I recall from the last time I looked at these statistics, around 50% of people pay cash for the holidays and 50% slide some credit card debt. And so we have been guilty. We've not gone into debt for the holidays, but we have really borrowed from Peter to pay Paul in the past for holidays. It's been a while since we've done it, but especially when the kids were young, we were like, all right, we're going to slide some money over from January's like food budget or some other part of the budget from January in order to try to pay for those holidays expenses. But I think what happens is when you don't pay cash for the holidays, it makes you feel like you're starting the next year, the new year, with this load on your mind of trying to figure out how you're going to pay yourself back for what you borrowed from your January budget in order to pay for the holidays. So don't do that. Think about it now and be realistic.
Step 5 is to create a preliminary budget for next year. Now, we mentioned that this is part 2 of 4. In part 1, we really thoroughly covered this topic and gave you some really good ways to plan on how to build a preliminary budget or how to create that budget for the next year.
That video is right over there, guys. Go take a look at it next.